and welcome back to Taken Seriously with me, Lauren Hopkins, the Managing Director at Grace. This podcast series brings you HR leaders to discuss some of the great work carried out throughout lockdown, the reality of the HR profession, as well as the future of HR post-pandemic. Today, I was joined by Dawn Chisolm, who is the People Experience Advocate at Papercut Software. They're a print management software business on a mission to reduce waste. They employ 216 people globally with headquarters in Melbourne, Australia, and Dawn is responsible for leading the people function across EMEA. Great, so Dawn, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Lauren.
No problem. You were by far the quickest respondent I've ever had being invited on the podcast, so thank you. And that clearly means you've got some interesting stuff to talk about.
Oh, let's hope so.
I always start these off in the same manner. So I've given you a brief intro there, but if you wouldn't mind just telling me and everyone else listening who you are, a bit more depth, what you do, and a little bit more about the organisation.
Yeah, sure. So I am a people experience advocate at Papercut. That's my current role. I actually live in Surrey. I did a bit of a stint living and working in Australia a few years ago, which is funny now being back working for an Australian company. We are headquartered in Melbourne in Australia. So yeah, had definite ties. When I applied for the job at Papercut, I did see that they were an Australian company. So as I say, yeah, got a bit of roots over there now. A bit about me myself. I'm quite an avid reader. During lockdown, I really revitalised that passion again, I guess. I think I've read something like 30-ish books or something over lockdown.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, trying to get back myself into that hobby. It's definitely yeah, as I say, quite a big hobby of mine now. And I really enjoy working out. So in particular, I do quite a lot of running, dancing as well. Again, something I picked up again during lockdown, and hiking as well. Do quite a lot of walking with my fiance Liam. So that's a bit about me, I guess. A little bit more about Papercut ourselves. So just over 2 decades ago, Papercut was founded. Our co-CEOs are still involved in the business now, so that's Chris Dance and Matt Doran. And we're now joined, I guess, yeah, I think it's 21 or 22 years, sorry now. 22 years on, we're joined by, yeah, more than 115 million users across 200 countries and over 75,000 organisations. So, yeah, just hoping to, I guess, make a great impact on the environment through the product. I think you've given a bit of context in the introduction about us being a printing management software. So yeah, we're trying to, as I said, inspire environmentally friendly printing whilst also saving businesses money. We've actually, a really cool stat that I always like to share if I'm talking to candidates or anything like that, is that we actually have to date saved over 750 million sheets of paper, and that kind of converts to around 80,000 trees. So we're really, yeah, that's a really good story, and it showcases exactly what the company want to be doing. So
amazing, great. And so tell us a bit about your HR journey. So how you got to the role that you're in currently.
Absolutely. So my career started actually within a recruitment agency. In the UK when I first, yeah, similar to what you do now. Yeah, just before I moved to Australia, I did that straight out of uni. So I then left the recruitment agency. I did about a 6-month stint, realised that I definitely wanted to travel the world and do all those kind of things. So yeah, left to do a holiday working experience in Perth in Australia, where I worked again in recruitment. So I was at Randstad Recruitment. I worked as a resourcer there. And I really found my passion through those 2 stints in agency work. I love that feeling of helping people find work and find jobs they love. So when I came back to the UK after our year traveling, I just was like, oh, I'll just try and find my feet. I thought I wanted to go into HR, but I thought let me just try some things out. Anyway, I managed to land a temp job at Salesforce, and so I was a recruitment coordinator. I thought, oh, I'll just give this a go. Not really sure who this company are, without, obviously did a little bit of research when I interviewed with them, but then found that they were incredible company. You know, lots of opportunity to grow. You know, a huge organisation. I think they're over 30,000 people now. So yeah, while I found my feet, I stuck within the recruitment coordinator team, landed a permanent position with them, which I felt really grateful for. And whilst I built my brand up within the business, I got myself signed up for my CIPD level 5 because I thought, yeah, this is going to be something I want to do. HR feels like a right place, because I was doing things like contracts and some HR administration type duties whilst I was there. So as I started networking around the business, I did manage to move into the HR shared services team there. And that's where I started digging more into that generalist HR work. So benefits, talent development, HR systems, promotion cycles, and all those kind of things. And again, really, because it was quite high level, I got quite good generalist experience whilst I was there. So I held about 3 roles when I was in the shared services team. But I really found I was passionate about learning, and I think probably by having those 3 different roles probably proved that I really was a passionate learner. I really took every mentorship opportunity that I could. And yeah, I was mentored by a wonderful HR business partner at the end of my career with Salesforce, who gave me some really incredible stretch opportunities. And that really helped me to solidify my knowledge towards my goal, which was to become an HR business partner myself. So I also, on the side of all that learning, I took on quite a big stretch opportunity of my own kind of doing. And I started to lead an employee resource group in the UK for Salesforce, which was called Ability Force. So it was a support network for people with disabilities or people who are affected or have passions towards making a more inclusive workplace for people with disabilities. So that really did grow my breadth of understanding and my knowledge around diversity and inclusion programs, and I really realised that was an area that's hugely important to me and something I feel really passionate about. So I then landed the role at Papercut somehow. I still to this day don't know how I managed to get this role. It's a dream come true, and I'm not just saying that because I work there. So yeah, I've been with them now just over a year. I started working for Papercut back in May 2019, and it's been a wonderful opportunity so far. So much growth in this first year and 4 months or whatever it is, in such a short space of time. But yeah, just taking every learning challenge and things as they come.
Amazing. And we've obviously spoken before this, and you're in a very much a standalone role at the moment, aren't you? So you're wearing all the hats, and looking at every aspect possible of HR. But is there a certain area that you're slightly more passionate about, that you enjoy?
So definitely on the diversity and inclusion side, I've only just really started to get my feet under the table in that space in recent months. Actually, at Papercut, there was a lot of priorities. Being the first person in HR to come into the EMEA team and solely be focused on the EMEA team meant that there was quite a lot of getting some of the foundational pieces put in there. So benefits and things like that was quite a key focus area for me. I definitely say diversity and also coaching. I've really enjoyed working with managers closely, working with people across the business to help them develop in their own careers, develop their teams. So I'd say that's another area of passion for me, for sure.
Excellent. So without being too doom and gloom, we will have to touch on the last 6 months. We always have to. It's affected everyone very differently. Some businesses have done actually incredibly well and have thrived. Others the opposite, unfortunately. But I think everyone in your function can agree that however good or bad it's been, the pressure has been immense, particularly for people who are in standalone. You haven't got a wider team, sort of the support of the wider team. It's very much on you. You're very visible, and there's a lot of pressure by the wider organisation to deliver and to have the answers for everything, which actually has been impossible because no one has known the answers. Everything has been changing so quickly from businesses and also from sort of government legislation. Everything has been changing so quickly. So to keep up to date with that has been nigh impossible. But it'd be really interesting to kind of hear from you how lockdown was, both personally for you and also professionally, being in HR.
Absolutely. So professionally, from an HR perspective, I guess, well, to start with, we were very, very lucky to not have had to, do any furloughing or redundancies to this point. You know, we did manage to keep our whole workforce employed, as I say, and we were able to work through lockdown. So we were very lucky. Yeah. So yeah, I do feel very grateful for that, for sure. I do have, just for context, I do have other HR colleagues based over in America and in Australia as well, who've been an amazing support. But kind of like you say, the time zones are so challenging that I did spend a lot of time by myself, and, you know, trying to find the answers to these unknowns, navigating that by myself quite a bit. But I'd say that the key challenges for me personally, and again talking from a professional level, and then I'll move into my personal things around lockdown, I guess would be, well, first of all, definitely how we kept aligned globally when regionally our COVID situations and world situations were so very different. So as I mentioned, we are headquartered in Melbourne. We also have a team in the US who, of course, didn't have just COVID going on. They had the tipping point of, you know, the brutal murder of George Floyd happening on the doorstep. So, you know, frequent, concise communication really was key for us. And, you know, we're not only handling time zone differences anymore, it's actually handling something, as you mentioned, that no one's ever been through. And we were, as I said, experiencing those things so differently. So yeah, building understanding and empathy, I guess, with one another, and helping the organisation and our people to build that empathy and understanding as well, I think was just absolutely critical for us. And definitely, yeah, obviously building that alignment to make sure we're all driving to a similar direction, I guess, as I said, because of the complexities, things with different priorities were changing for each of us in the different regions, but trying to keep aligned as a whole. And I guess building certainty where everything was uncertain was really, really important. And I guess the second challenge I saw professionally was how I supported our people remotely when wellbeing was 100% the number one priority. Of course, wellbeing is always important. It was always important pre-COVID for me, to make sure that our people's wellbeing was front and center. But definitely wellbeing is easier to read when you're bumping into someone at the coffee machine or walking in from the car park with them into the building, or, you know, knowing when someone's having a good day was much easier to read when you could have those brief, quick interactions with them. So being remote definitely added a whole new level of complexity when we went into lockdown, and navigating that was super tricky. It actually still has its challenges today, because of course we are still working from home, as you can see behind me. Yeah, very much still at home. So yes, that's definitely still I guess a piece for me that's still ongoing. I guess from a personal perspective, lockdown for me was quite interesting because my partner was furloughed and I wasn't. So we had very different different experiences. I had something to focus on. He bless him, he found a lot of jobs to focus on, but
did he find them, or did you find them for him?
Well, we'll say that it was me, but he'll listen to this and say it was otherwise. He'll argue with it. But we definitely had a few things that I definitely had a few things I could add to the list. But yeah, so I maintained that focus, and you know, on the weekends I really, as I kind of mentioned at the beginning, got my head into books and tried to bring myself out of the reality of the kind of stressful time, I guess, that was going on around me, not being able to see our families, friends, you know, trying to keep in touch with everyone. Are you actually okay? And again, it felt I was doing that in work and personal, so sometimes it felt there was no escape almost. So yeah, reading really helped me to connect with that. We were also quite good at spending time outdoors, when obviously, you know, hour a day exercise or whatever it was at one point
when allowed.
So I guess really focusing on what's going to help me to become resilient through this, and prioritizing my mental well-being became even more of a priority than it was before as well, kind of similar to what I said about from a professional level, to be honest.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that, actually, about almost having the HR hat on, but personally, because a lot of my clients have said the same, it's ingrained into them, because that's what they do. They're sort of, you know, the mother hen at work, and they're the ones that are looking after everyone, and it's really hard to switch that off. If that is just in your nature to be like that, you take that into your personal life. And a lot of my clients have said, you know, I found that we're the ones who are constantly checking up family, friends, that sort of initiating those conversations, and almost sometimes have to stop themselves and think, well, actually that's maybe almost a bit too sort of professional for what it needs to be. It's just touching base, but that does mean that it's nice that you're sort of checking in on people. What about, I guess, things like looking back at and reflecting over the last 6 months at learnings? What has been a very steep learning curve for us all, as an understatement. What have been your sort of main sort of learnings from the last 6 months?
So certainly number one thing for me, as a learning, has been that I am an overthinker. I knew that before, but actually sometimes that's okay. I used to think it was a really bad thing, but having a plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, can really, it can be a waste of time. Pre-COVID, I thought, oh, why am I thinking of all these different options? But actually, in moments like this, we need that. We need to know what the different options are. So definitely a learning from me. I need to stop thinking that that's such a negative. It can be annoying when I'm trying to have, trying to sleep. And options.
Brain's just going.
Yeah. But do you know what? It proved quite useful for this situation, for sure. Another thing I've learned 100% is sharing is caring. I used to do a lot, or hold a lot of my worries in, I guess. I've realised that sharing how you're feeling can really help not only yourself, but actually others around you who may be going through a similar thing. And sometimes just knowing you're not the only one is super comforting. So learning that, has really, I guess, showing vulnerability, and whether that's at work or at home, I think has its real benefits. And the third thing, and I told 2 friends that we saw yesterday this, and they laughed at me, is that actually I'm a bit of a secret introvert. I don't come across like one. But pre-COVID, I was always, packing my schedule with heaps of social events and things like that. And after a day of work, I didn't realise how revitalising it is for me to, like I say, curl up with a book for a couple of hours, or sit and just reflect on the day, instead of, rushing off to the next thing, and not being surrounded by people or having to talk to people all the time. It really definitely helps me, to re-energise, ready for the next day. So they're probably the key 3 things that I'd say.
Great learnings. Do you know what? It's really interesting you just said that, because whilst you can probably tell, this is not my decor of choice. I'm abroad in Italy at the moment in what would have been a ski chalet. So this is not my bedroom with nothing in it, nor my curtain of choice. But last week I was in Portugal, and with a couple of friends, and we were actually talking about whether you're an extrovert or an introvert. And talking about people who have done those tests as part of the interview process and what everyone came out as, and we're having a really good sort of chat about it. And I've not done one of those, and I just immediately said, well, I, not the quietest of people. I love being around everyone. So automatically thought definitely extrovert. And actually, when I spoke to one of my friends, she'd said it's not about how loud you are, how confident you are, or whether you like being around people. It's about where you get your energy from. So, and you can do that and still be confident and still be, cracking jokes, but you can still be an introvert. And it's, some people are not good in their own space and always have to be around people. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be the loudest person in that group, but you love to constantly be, around people, and that's how you kind of get your buzz. Whereas I actually then went back and did a couple of online things. That's how fun my holiday was. And I actually came out as introvert, which really, really, really shocked me. I would never have said that, but like yourself, after, a day's work, or sometimes during lockdown, I thought I am actually really enjoying some alone time. I can somehow feel my days just pottering around. Other people I know would absolutely hate that. An hour is too much to be alone. I'm the complete opposite. I love to be around people sometimes. Even on a group holiday, I will take myself off and have some downtime and like read a book or, whatever. So that's really interesting you said that, because I came out definitely introvert, and that was a learning, a big learning.
Absolutely. And I think it's the definition of these things, right? I think traditionally people saw introvert and extrovert as introverts are people who are quiet and don't want to talk to anyone and just want to be by themselves all the time, and extroverts are the people who are the loudest in the room, like you say. They're the ones that are always, the entertainment of of every party, etc. But actually, like you say, it's where you get your energy, and I think I do have a balance of both. But yeah, certainly more on the learning piece that we were talking about. Definitely realised that I do get a lot of energy from doing things on my own.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. Good to have, good to look back sometimes. Something's come out of this.
Absolutely.
One of the main reasons for wanting to essentially do this podcast, I think I spoke to you before this and just explained, was a number of things. One was really because lots and lots of conversations I've had over the past few months about how clients were sort of engaging with their workforce remotely, which was completely different to what they were used to, how they were supporting them. You mentioned earlier, wellbeing should have, and is always important. It's just been brought to the spotlight more so now. Maybe it's not always been as important to some businesses. It's not necessarily been a priority, and it should have. So maybe actually this has been a positive to really, accelerate that and allow businesses to take it really, really seriously. But I was just so impressed, really inspired by some of the work that some of our clients were doing to look after their people. And I think actually I said to them, this should be showcased. You should be shouting about this. This is something you should really be proud of. Not just that one person, it's a team effort. And whether it's HR or the whole company, everyone has worked and has played their part in helping the organizations to sort of move through the last 6 months. And these things should be celebrated. I think anyway, I'm a big believer in that, and sort of celebrating success. So that's kind of the main reason, was to talk about, and give you the opportunity now to talk about how you've engaged with your workforce over the last 6 months when they were at home, and any initiatives that you came up with to kind of look after them, or whether that's a social aspect or more work-based. But how did you kind of look after everyone during that time?
Yeah, so we are really, really, well, one of our core values as a business, for context, is honesty. So what we have always encouraged is feedback at Papercut, and we're massive advocates for it. So utilising that at this time, frequent feedback, was really important to us. So we use a platform called Culture for our engagement surveys, our employee engagement surveys over the year. And they actually created a fantastic COVID-19 response survey template, which we took inspiration from to check in with our employees. So we did 2 of those over the kind of lockdown period here in the UK. And we did another one that was more readiness for going back to the office type survey. And these were confidential surveys, which basically checked in with, how are you doing? What do you need? How are we tracking on specific areas, things like health and safety, feeling comfortable to raise concerns, direction and strategy, those kind of things. And the feedback from the survey, what we did with that was really, that helped to generate a ton of initiatives, wellbeing initiatives. So we, did a mental wellbeing panel discussion quite early on, in the lockdown. We now do weekly Monday wellbeing sessions. So we do things like meditation one week, yoga another week, Pilates another week,
Great.
and all sorts of different things. How are you doing sessions, where we literally just say, how are you doing? I'll facilitate it, or someone else in the business will facilitate it, and just ask each individual on the call, if you want to share, how are you doing? If you don't, we can all just sit here and listen and be there for each other. It's not to solve anyone's problems, it's just to hear one another out. So they've been really, really impactful. And we did some various team activities. They said about the social there, to help keep the team connected. We have done a number of those things. So treasure hunts, we did a virtual countdown the other week.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was brilliant. 4:00 on a Friday, just, tools down, and let's have a little bit of time together, where we aren't talking about work, but we're still building those relationships as closely as we can to what we would have had in the office. So that's one thing we did. I'm now actually a proud mental health first aider. So again, when I talked about wellbeing really important, what our global people experience team really started to champion was a mental health first aid program, to really equip us, I guess, to be as proactive as possible when it comes to identifying potential mental health issues with our people. So they know, they have someone in the organisation to turn to, who's equipped with what avenues are available for them if they need anything, and to support them through what's happening. Again, it's not that we've turned into psychologists or counsellors or anything like that through the training, but it's really helped us, I guess, to know, okay, how do we assess this situation? How do we, show, give support, etc., etc. So that was a really amazing thing that Papercut kind of sponsored our team to go through in Australia and in the UK. Just at the moment, in Americas we will do it, but they're not offering remote sessions at the moment. So we haven't quite got that up and running there, but we will definitely in the future. And out of that as well, or that kind of focus, I guess, on mental health first aid, we created a wellbeing action plan as well. So that enables people to drive their own conversations around their well-being, what they need support-wise, what things do bring them down on days, so that they can share that with their teams if they feel comfortable, or their team leads, or whoever it is that they work with in the business they feel need to know those things. And they can work with us as people experience, or again, their team leaders, or any other people in the business that they trust and want to go through that process with. And that was inspired actually by Mind UK. They have a wellbeing action plan that we used inspiration from again. And I guess another thing and last thing on this note, I guess, was trying to create a really safe and stable environment for our paper cutters, so they could feel, a part of something, and creating, as I said earlier, certainty in really uncertain times. So our leadership team were great in taking time out to speak to our people. We had things like videos from them. We still actually get them. So like our CEO, Chris, shared one the other day. He's got his children involved. So it's great fun, but also sharing, transparently what's going on in his world, what's top of mind for him, etc. We also had Ask Me Anything forums with the leadership team, where we can ask any questions that we want to them. And also they were really great at sharing our company performance. So sharing dashboards, having open discussions about what precautionary measures we were going through as a business, and putting those out there but we have bi-weekly global meetings where all of our paper cutters either obviously watch live for Australia and Americas, but us in EMEA is mandatory that we watch those, and because it gives us all key information. So having that information shared so openly was definitely something Papercut did really, really well in terms of, I guess, helping with that, building certainty in an uncertain environment.
Yeah, it sounds like as a business, you're far ahead of some, and I've spoken to a lot in the past few months. So that's all of those things should be stuff that you're incredibly proud of as a business. Do you think quite a lot of these that were maybe implemented during the lockdown period will be continued even post-pandemic, or it's more of an interim?
So definitely from a feedback perspective, like I said before, we are very good at doing that, and keeping those communication and feedback loops open. I'd say as well, from a mental wellbeing perspective, absolutely. Wellbeing was always a priority, but I think that ever more than now than ever, it's 100% going to stick. I can't see it moving off the agenda for us at Papercut, to be honest with you. And that open sharing was happening again before COVID. I think we just didn't focus as much on the, I guess, company performance piece as regularly as we were doing. So we were still talking about it, and Papercut are very good at sharing transparently, but just not as regularly. So whether that stays or not, I'm not 100% sure. I guess it depends on what happens with the print industry and things like that in the future, and what uncertainty we see in that space. But I'd like to hope that we do still give that. And if our employees want to see it, we'll definitely hear about it. So it will definitely come back if our employees want to hear about that.
Great. Okay, so we've gone back and gone through your career history to date, role you are in now. We've looked at lockdown period. We'll swiftly move on from that. We've looked at challenges. We looked at some amazing initiatives that you and the sort of the wider team have come up with. Looking more to the future, as we all are currently doing at the moment. What do you think the next sort of 3 to 6 months are looking like for you as a business? What are your priorities from an HR perspective?
So I guess from an HR perspective, priorities for us would definitely be wellbeing, as we said. I won't go into too much more about that, but number one would be the wellbeing of our people. I'd say as well, strategy and alignment, direction, those kind of things are definitely hot on the radar of our leadership team, to provide a really solid strategy for us to all align towards and give us some clear direction out of this, because of course COVID has changed what that looks like and what it was before. So I'd say that 100% is a priority and focus area for us. as well as, looking at what's the industry and market doing, and bringing clarity to our people around that. Obviously we only know so much, but we've got some great connections and great partners out there who, we can, lean on those relationships to really help us to inform what we're doing. And again, it kind of leans into that strategy piece as well, I guess. And then as well, I'd say, due to everything that kind of was happening in the US at the moment, and with the Black Lives Matter uprising, I'd say diversity, inclusion, equity and belonging's got to be a priority for us as a business, and particularly moving out of this this time. I think it's again something that definitely needs to be focused on by all businesses, to be honest, of how we create inclusive workspaces coming out of a time where a lot of people are suffering with things like mental health, etc.
And how have you, if you don't mind me asking, communicated what's going on in the States at the moment to your sort of EMEA region, if you like?
So we probably more so have communicated out, through our US based team, so our Portland team. Okay. So they've done an amazing job at coming together. They've brought together a diversity inclusion group where they're focusing on, okay, where are we at now? Where do we want to be? And how can we get there? So they're actually looking at engaging within a consultant that can really help to drive that. And they've actually been sharing in those the bi-weekly meetings that we spoke about earlier. They've been sharing what they've been discussing and things from that really openly with the team. So that has struck a chord, and people are really loving hearing those updates. I guess from an EMEA perspective, what we've started to do, and as I said, we've only kind of just started to dip our toes in the water, is started to just have open conversations around diversity. What things are top of mind for our people here? What are your thoughts around, racial inequality in the UK? Or what are you reading? I've been doing personally a lot of self-work around, white privilege and all those kind of things, to try and understand what that means as a white woman. What does it mean for me? And trying to encourage, I guess, other people to do that is going to be quite important. But I want to make sure I've done enough myself before I start driving anything like that. But our US team, I'd say, are probably the ones that have really been waving the flag and helping us as an organization understand what it means.
Yeah. And even just if you're just starting and having these conversations is so important, and educating ourselves and learning and reading and just absorbing as much information as you can. That is a really great start, I think. And it sounds like the US team you've got a lot of people there to sort of pull on and learn a lot from as well, which is great, and it's probably helped align it this end.
Absolutely.
And lastly, we've already sort of touched on the learnings, 3 key learnings, which are great. We won't go back over those, but in terms of how this sort of pandemic, I guess, has sort of changed the actual function, the HR function. Do you think it will look different as we come out of this? Sort of how HR operates, maybe how it's perceived by the wider business?
Absolutely. So I really hope that HR evolves into being a true partnership within businesses. I'm really lucky that the organisations I've worked for have always had HR on a leadership team. So I know that's not the case in all organisations, but I am
not at all.
Yeah, I'm very lucky to have experienced it. But those organisations who don't have HR on the leadership team and see us as a tactical execution function really need to challenge themselves to get on top. Get on in that top level of the organisation, HR. We have shown, I hope, as an industry during this time, what value we can bring. Having us involved in strategy building, contingency planning for the business is really, really important. We have our finger on the pulse with things like health and safety, government requirements, legislation, employee wellbeing, communications, all those things, and it really can help to lessen the impact of the people, which are organizations' biggest assets, or key assets even. I think that's where I'd love to see it go. I also really hope and we've touched on this quite a bit just at the latter point of this conversation, but I really hope that, you know, the HR profession begins to really champion and potentially drive diversity and inclusion work as a standard. It was happening well before, you know, the Black Lives Matter uprising, but you know, racial inequality really did, you know, well, the Black Lives Matter uprising, I guess, did really bring to the forefront the impact and prevalence of working on our unconscious bias in that space, to really, I guess, create inclusive societies, let alone in workplaces. We need to do that in general as a country. And the time now, I guess, is really to sit in that uncomfort and face the reality of where we are. I get, in order to, you know, challenge ourselves, as I say, and others' perspectives as well, to drive the results and drive where we want to go in that space. And inclusion, I've talked a lot about the racial diversity piece, but also for working parents, this is where COVID's really, really shown. For working parents, I'd love to see more, you know, widely discussed out of lockdown within HR, flexible working, having that as a standard offering to help, again, create the safe, caring environments that our people want and require, really, in order to successfully balance their work life and be successful in their careers as well. So yeah, there are a couple of things that I really hope to come out of this for the HR function.
Yeah, and that completely mirrors how I feel as well. I mean, you're right, they are uncomfortable conversations. They're uncomfortable because we're not where we need to be. And that in itself is not good enough at all. And touching on the HR function, I've said this in every single episode and I sound like a broken record, but that is the reason, again, why I'm doing these podcasts. And that's the reason why it's called Taken Seriously, because it is, I mean, it's not about time. It's really, really beyond that time, but that the function is taken seriously, and it should, as you said, it should form part of the leadership function. You know, it's of huge value, huge value, and it hasn't always had the best reputation. We have come a long way, no doubt, and I know that actually more, hopefully now more so than not, you know, people appreciate and people understand and recognise the value that it brings. But even if there are, you know, a few companies or a few people that have that old school perception, quite frankly, I think that's too many people that have that perception. And I hope, particularly with these episodes and some of the amazing work, you know, you showcase the value that you bring in, you know, very short space of time. I really, really hope that as, you know, the months go on, you know, this old school perception is just completely wiped. And that, you know, the function is taken seriously, as it quite rightly should do, because it is about the people. And as you said, if you don't have a business without your people. It's not just the transactional side. There will always be that small element to it, as in any function, but that is just such a fraction of the function. So I think that is a great place to end. Thank you so much. That's I knew this is why you were jumping the chance to come on. Really interesting context there. And I think, I mean, I've certainly learned a lot, and I think a lot of people listening will have a lot to take away. So I really appreciate you taking the time today. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Lauren. Yeah, thank you. And if anyone listening, or you know, if anyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn or anything like that and have further chats, please feel free to. I'm more than happy to talk to anyone who's interested and as passionate about these things as I am.
Perfect. Great. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for listening, everyone.